And the book is called the Book of Bamidbar, or Midbar is desert, wilderness. But actually, it has a second name too. And that second name is the Medrash calls it the Book of Pekudim. Pekudim means numbers. I'm sure you have seen it. Book number 4 in the Torah is Book of Numbers. Now, what do you call it? Book of Numbers. The entire book is called Book of Numbers. So the simple reason is because in this book, God counts the Jewish people 3 times. In this week's parsha, the Jews are counted. Then the tribe of Levi partially is counted in this week's parsha. In next week's book, they're counted again partially, the tribe of Levi. And then by the end, which is the parsha of Pinchas, almost at the end of this book, the Jews are counted again. Okay, so one of the countings are actually the second year they left Egypt. The last counting is the last year in the desert. So because the Jews are so many times, twice or 3 times counted, so we call this book the Book of Numbers. You know, there's a serious problem, not serious, but there's a question, interesting question, you know, that the commentators ask. And that is really numbers doesn't show on the quality of a person. You don't count Moses more than one, and even the lowest Jew is not counted less than one, right? Numbers only shows your external part. That's it. So why would you make a book named after something which only shows your external? Doesn't show anything about the internal, the inside of a person. It looks like a very, very external name. So what kind of a significance does it have to call it with that name? So there's actually 3 answers given. You know, number one that they give is actually quantity helps in quality too. At least by Jews, that's the way it is. How many people do you need to make a minyan? 10. Imagine you have 9 Moses, if there is. But Moshe makes a colony, you have 9 guys as righteous as Moshe. Can they take out the Torah? They can't. Once you bring the most simple Jew that can't even read, he just walks into the room and he becomes number 10. Okay? Then you have suddenly a minyan. Why? You have that extra holiness, so you could take out a Sefer Torah. What do we learn from this? That actually by Jews, the quantity brings the quality too. You need 1 Jew to make the minyan. So again, when we say that number only shows on the outside of a person, doesn't show on its quality, that's not necessarily true. A minyan shows on a full, complete number, brings a new quality in the Jews. That's why you have a minyan of 10. So that's why we use the name of numbers to teach you that by Jews, quantity and quality go hand in hand. But there's actually another deeper lesson. You know, in these days, honestly, one of the serious problems that we got is that people don't know their value. You know, one of the main reasons they say people commit suicide. Really, why is it? Like, I don't know, I'm not a doctor. I really don't know. But what I hear from the psychologists is that they say one of the main reasons are because they don't know their value. They think they're worth nothing. If I'm not worth anything, then my life is worth nothing. So why am I here? Why am I living? It's worth nothing. So therefore they commit suicide. When somebody knows his own value, knows the value of life, you know what, or his own value, obviously he's going to live. He doesn't want to die at all. So what actually numbers teach us, if anybody tells you that you're worth nothing, that's not true. Everybody's worth 1. Nobody's less than 1. Everybody counts. So that's why they chose this name numbers, because actually it teaches us a great lesson. Nobody's less than 1. Everybody's at least 1. You actually do matter. You're worth. You're worth something. You're worth a lot. You know, they always say when the birthday comes, for example, why is birthday such a special day? You should mourn. Go cry. You're 1 year closer to your death. No, isn't this a serious question? Actually, one of the commentators, I think is Avinu Bechaya, says, as soon as a child is born, it gets closer to his death. Very pessimistic way of looking at things. But anyways, honestly, why are we so happy when a birthday comes? So that meant what?
Because you're celebrating the day that we're alive, that's why.
You're celebrating the day that you're alive. Okay, that's true. That's one way of looking at it. Another way I say, because you're 1 year closer to your wedding, and if you're already married, you're 1 year closer to become a father, then a grandfather, you know. No, but any seriously. So the 2 reasons given. Reason number 1 is because God trusts you and gives you another year to live. So if you actually God trusts you, there's a good reason to be happy. The second reason Rav Nachman says, God decided many, many years ago, let's say you're 20 years old. How old are you, Mr. Harunia?
17.
17 years ago, God decided that the world cannot go without you. That means you're worth something. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. That's what the numbers actually teach us.
Thank you.
I don't know. You want to use this?
Thank you.
Don't forget to give it to him.
Yeah, I can't go to sleep with my hat. I'm just kidding. So the great lesson that we learn is everybody's worth something. Never underestimate yourself. You have no idea what kind of powers you got. And then there's actually a third answer. This is going to be a very deep one, people. We're going to go to Kabbalistic explanations. You're going to see why actually this whole book is called Book of Counting. We're going to go through a Kabbalistic system. Are you ready for that? Everybody knows why Jews got stuck in the desert for 40 years. What did they do wrong?
They worship the night.
No.
Was
Oh.
the golden. Oh,
The golden calf wasn't the reason that they were there for 40 years.
they broke the 10 commandments.
That Moses broke it. And so that has to be the golden calf. No. What was the reason that they got stuck there for 40 years? We're going to see how simple the explanation is and how Kabbalah explains it. Very, very beautiful. The Torah says because when the spies came back, Moses sent spies, 12 of them, to go check out what a beautiful land of Israel is. When they came back, not only they didn't say it's a beautiful land, they said this land is contaminated, people were dying, we can't go to the land of Israel. And then all the Jews believed it and they cried, you know what, we would rather die in the desert and not go to the land of Israel because our enemies are going to kill us. It's a very contaminated land. So God says, okay, you get what you wish for. You wish to die in the desert, you're going to die in the desert for the next 40 years. Correct? But you see, Kabbalah doesn't accept that. They said, that's not, come on, God is not like that. The Jews didn't want to go to the land of Israel, correct? So God could have punished them by taking them to a different land. For example, Uganda. The reason why I'm saying that, because when the Israelis in the beginning, when they wanted to have a land, there was a whole debate. Should they go to the land of Israel because it's God-given land, or should they even go to some place like Uganda? So thank God they went to the right place. They went to the land which is given to us by God, land of Israel, the Holy Land. But honestly, if God didn't want them to go to the land of Israel, take them to Uganda. Take them to Egypt. No, they were in Egypt. They can't go there. Take them somewhere else. Why do you make them get stuck in the desert? So Kabbalah says very, very beautifully that desert is not just a desert. Desert actually shows on the forces of evil. Let's try to figure it out why. You have two types of forces, right? You got forces of holiness, or if you go to some places, they call it positive energy. Let's use the Torah word. It's called the side of the Kedusha, godliness. And then there's the other side of evil, right? So now what does the desert resemble? The evil side. Why? Because in the desert, nothing grows. Not only that nothing grows, but actually you have animals that attack, they kill. It's full of snakes, scorpions, whatever it is. Nothing grows there. So if nothing positive grows in the desert, right, it shows on the sources of evil. When the Jews went to the desert, wasn't only the physical desert. They were there actually, the Kabbalah says, to, what do you call it, to neutralize and to destroy the forces of evil. Is that clear, people? How did they destroy the forces of evil by going to the desert? What happened to the desert during those 40 years that the Jews were there? They made the Mishkan, which was the mobile Beit HaMikdash. They brought godliness down. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it a little bit. They made, the house of God. Oh, now it doesn't exist. I mean, that was mobile. When they came to Israel, they built the Beit HaMikdash. It's hidden somewhere. They say after, they made the Beit HaMikdash, they hid it somewhere underground. I don't know where it is. Why? Because the people should not abuse them. It's a very holy thing. Built by Moses, very, very holy thing. So anyways, so when they made actually the temple in the desert, godliness was revealed. It says that plants started growing there. So the Jews were there to bring Kedusha, holiness, in a place of evil. That's why they were there for 40 years. If they wouldn't have sinned with the sin of the spies, so there would be like this huge fire that, could send its light to a far place. So the Jews didn't have to go through the desert to bring godliness there. But because they sinned, whatever, they brought the bad report of the spies. So because of that, they had to go through the desert and bring godliness. Now I have a question from you. If you go to an evil place, what guarantees that you're going to overcome the evil? Maybe the evil is going to overcome you. That's a fair question. It's really a fair question. So what happens is, guys, we're going to go into a halacha I'm sure you guys will learn it one day, but it's going to keep a kosher home. Imagine your wives or yourself. Sometimes men are better cooks than their wives. There was one time a story that a couple got married, and then the lady went to cook, to buy Friday afternoon. By the time she came back, the husband made the chulent. She was a smart lady. She was a little bit hurt. It says, hey, that's my job to make the chulent. Why are you doing it? So the guy says, in my house, my father cooks it. So he says, okay, next week I'll cook it. Whoever is the better cook, he or she will cook it for the rest of the time. Didn't get into an argument. So anyways, just, about cooking. Sometimes, my father was a better cook than my mom, honestly. He was a chef. So we always loved to eat my father's food. My mother's food too. But my father's food was always better. But anyways, going back, so what happens, let's say if you're making a meat, a what do you call it? A meat soup or something, and then a drop of milk falls in there. What's the halacha? You got to clean it up as much as you can. Throw out the milk in there. But what's the halacha? Is the soup kosher or is not kosher? No, there must be a way. So you're going to learn this halacha. They're going to tell you a bunch of Talmidei Chachamim learn the halachas of kashrut. So the halacha is if the meat it's 60 times more than the milk, you're allowed to have it. Why? Because the Torah prohibits the mixture of the taste of meat and milk. But if the amount of the soup is 60 times more, and again, you took out the white spot as much as you can, you're not going to taste the milk. So it's called that is nullified.
So is it only if it's by accident?
If it's by accident. You cannot purposely mix kosher and non-kosher milk and meat. If it happens by mistake, then it's fine. There's only one exception. The exception is, imagine the non-kosher thing. When you buy it from the marketplace, you don't buy it by weight. You buy it by counting. 1, 2, 3. I don't know if eggs go in that category. Some people say it does go because you buy eggs by dozens. You don't buy it by pounds. So imagine you have all these eggs, all chicken eggs, whatever it is, and then one of them is from a non-kosher bird, and they get mixed up. You don't know the difference. You can't eat any of them, even if you have 1,000 times more kosher, because something which is counted is very important. It never gets nullified. You get that? A drop of milk gets nullified, but something that's important never gets nullified. So here's the question: are the Jews important beings that if they want, nothing will nullify them? They could actually change the world will not change them? Or are we a bunch of weak things that the world will change us? So that's why God counted us. You get that? We were counted, so we became important things. God says, no matter wherever you go, if you want to stay Jewish, you can stay Jewish. Nothing will nullify you. And I'm not kidding. It's amazing. Guys, you look at, other people. The Zoroastrians, like, there were a huge community once upon a time in the old Persia. How many Zoroastrians do you have? Not too many. The Romans, one time, dominated the world. They're not here. They just got assimilated. How is it that Jews were persecuted for so many years, but we're still here? Really? You had the Greeks, and you had the Persians, and you had the Romans, and you had the Crusaders, and then you had the Muslims that attacked them. Right? You just had the 2 world wars. World War II, 6 men were wiped away. 1/3 of Jewish people, How did we exist after so many things? So one of the answers are that God actually makes you an important being. When he counted us in the desert, those days, so you became something which is counted. So nothing can nullify a Jew if he wants to stay Jewish. The only way you become nullified, if you lose your own value, you go assimilate with other people. But if you want to stay Jewish, you can stay Jewish. Is that clear, people? That's why this parsha is called Parsha of Counting, the book of Numbers, to teach us that a Jew can never, if he wants to, he'll never be nullified. Not only that, he could transform the place. Honestly, look at what's going on here. When we came to America 40 years ago, how many Jewish institutions were there? Ask your parents. You guys are born here, most of you, right? When we came in the valley, there was only 1 kosher market, 2 kosher markets. Was Mr. Kosher and Ventura Kosher. The Persian synagogues, there was only 2. There was Wilbur Synagogue and maybe Torah Chaim. That's it. And look back, look how many things you got, how many Jewish organizations you got. So not only that we didn't assimilate, he actually brought more godliness in the world. You guys have to know your values. Nothing can overcome if you don't want to be overcome by them. Any questions before we go to the next part? No questions? You're convinced? For sure? Awesome. That's good. I'm just going to go learn something with you guys from last week because we didn't have the class. We had the barbecue last week. It was awesome. We saw so many friends. Um, one of the things that we have in last week's portion, Parshat Behar, it talks about uses actually the same words, but they really don't have the same meaning. Let me just go through it for a second. The Torah over there talks about not to victimize, not to hurt somebody. The Torah says in last week's Parsha, "V'chitim keru mimka lamitecha." If you're going to sell something to your friend, or you're going to buy something from your friend, do not victimize him, don't hurt him. Right? So it says, Lo tonu, do not hurt him. 3 verses later, it says, V'lo tonu isha tamito, do not hurt your friend. And then it says, V'yareta melokecha, be afraid of your God. Why is the Torah repeating itself? In the first place, it says, when you buy or sell something, don't cheat your friend, don't hurt him. Later on, it says, again, don't hurt your friend, but he adds one sentence, be afraid of God. Why is the Torah repeating itself? So Rashi says it's not really repetition. There's 2 ways you can hurt somebody. You can hurt somebody financially, in business. It says when you buy or you sell, don't hurt your friend. You guys know when we were in Iran, I remember this, we used to live amongst a bunch of people. So when somebody had, a store, a grocery store to sell the apples, so some of the apples are about to get rotten. So what did they used to do? Put all the good-looking apples on top and put the rotten ones somewhere in the middle. So the guy doesn't see, just picks it up and buys it. That's called cheating in business. Well, let's say somebody gets a dish, or a plate or something, which is used, and he makes it so clean that it looks new. And then it tells the customer, this is never used, it's new, don't worry about it, just buy it. So the first part is talking about not hurting somebody financially. There's other ways too. Imagine somebody works for me, and I owe him money. I say, no, I'm not going to pay you. And I'm going to make up a lie because I'm not happy with your service. I really was happy, I just don't want to pay him. So I find a little mistake there. I'm not paying you, but I owe him the money. That's called wronging somebody, hurting somebody financially. That's the first verse. The second one is talking about when I hurt somebody verbally. I say a word that hurts him. It's not financial anymore. For example, a couple examples that the Gemara brings. I'll go over to a guy, that was not religious in the beginning, for example. Now became super religious. I think you're super religious. Come on, last year, me and you used to go to McDonald's and buy a cheeseburger. Why do you suddenly become so holy? Obviously, the guy's embarrassed of his past. So by me mentioning his past, I'm making him feel bad. Clear? Or let's say somebody that converts to Judaism. I'm talking about real conversion. Right? It's happening these days. Many people are looking for the truth. Actually, in our synagogue, every Shabbat afternoon, we have 2 women that actually converted, Orthodox, Spanish people. They come every Shabbat to the classes. Few guys that I know from the community, they were whatever dating non-Jews, and then they actually converted, they come to Orthodoxy. I'm not encouraging you. But I'm just saying, there are people like that. So imagine I walk over to a Christian that became a Jew or a Muslim that became a Jew, and I tell him, you know what? You used to eat ham. Wow, it's nice that now you're eating kosher meat. I'm making him feel bad. Or let's say if somebody, actually this happened to someone, that one of the relatives was in jail, one of the parents. So he came to the synagogue and another person said, your father was in jail. You might be a nice guy, but your father was in jail. These are words that hurt. So the Torah says do not use words that hurts people. So let's go through this. Which one is worse? If I hurt somebody financially, if I actually hurt somebody emotionally. So I asked it in a public school, and there was actually an African-American guy, and he says, Rabbi, it depends how much the money is. If it's $1 million that you owe me, so financial loss is worse. If it's only $10 or $20, then emotional hurt is worse. What's your opinion, people?
I agree.
He has a point in people's mind. I'm just talking about what is the Torah point of view. I didn't make fun of him.
I think Torah point of view emotionally is worse.
He's saying Torah point of view is if you hurt somebody emotionally is worse. You're absolutely right. The question is why.
I think it sticks with them for longer.
That's true.
Financially can be forgiven. I feel like easier because it's just materialistic.
Did you learn the Gemara on that?
I feel like I've heard something similar to this before.
So they actually gave two reasons of the Gemara. The Gemara gives one reason when it comes to financial loss, you're actually hurting him in his property, not the person himself. I'm not talking about that he hurt your feelings too by taking the money. If he hurts your feelings, so it's double. It's only money, it's strictly money. So whether you're actually hurting his property, not the person. But when you hurt somebody emotionally, you're hurting the person. That's worse. Number two, if I owe somebody money, as soon as I return the money, the pain is gone. But if I'm going to come and actually hurt you emotionally, even if I'm going to ask you for forgiveness, I can't erase the pain the same way that I can erase the debt. The debt I can erase, but I can't erase the pain. To make it a little bit more tangible, there was one time a woman, I don't know if it's a true story or not, honestly, but I heard it so many times, that had a daughter that always got angry. I don't know why the teacher said a daughter, why not a son? Okay, because the teacher was a woman, or he was talking about women, but it doesn't matter, boys or girls. This child used to get very angry. So the mother said, you know what, the way we're going to teach you to control your anger, every time you scream at your siblings, you have to go outside, take a nail and a hammer, and just bang the nail in the fence in the backyard. So, it was a pain in the neck. So the first day she got angry 10 times. The next day she wasn't in the mood of going and banging the nail. She got angry 5 times. So after a few days, she didn't get angry anymore. Now the mother says, you know what, every day that I don't get angry, you're going to go and take one nail out from the fence. So they did it after 10 days, 15 days, there was no more nails. So the mother says, what do you see in the fence? So it says bunch of holes, right? Because the nails leave a hole. So the mother said, when we hurt somebody emotionally, so figuratively, we're actually leaving some scars, some holes in the heart that is very hard to take away. That's the second reason why it's worse. The third reason why it's worse, the Gemara says, because the Torah says when you hurt somebody verbally, emotionally, it says, be afraid of your God. The Torah says that. What I say, be afraid of your God. So they give two explanations. Because when I hurt somebody financially, I'm not scared of God, I'm not scared of the people. The moment I hurt somebody emotionally, because I didn't mean it, I never really meant it, you understood it that way. But really, I meant to hurt somebody. But I'm just making up a story. No, I didn't mean to hurt you, I meant something else. So I'm afraid of people, but I'm not afraid of God. That's why it's worse. Another reason is because when it comes to money, I could take you to court, to a Jewish court, I get my money back. But if I hurt you emotionally, can I take you to court? You can't take me to court. What is court going to do? We can't do nothing. There's nothing tangible, I'm saying, to give back. So whether when I can't really go and, get back what I needed, so whether God mixes in. And the Gemara says, if I hurt somebody emotionally, God will actually mix in right away. So these are the two things that we learn. And the Talmud says, the Gemara says that hurting somebody emotionally is a lot worse. Why am I saying that, people? Unfortunately, we live in a certain society not us, people are very judgmental. If somebody does something, they start making up stories. They start making up stories behind his back what he did. What was going on? Like we had a couple of things happening in the shul, if I remember it or not. But it's not Shabbos, I don't remember. There's a couple of stories. Oh, somebody one time came to the shul very late. It was a woman, that has children. Could you imagine till she wakes up and the kids wake up, and you're going to feed the kids first at home. When you're talking about little kids, you can't bring them to shul hungry, to the synagogue hungry. So she actually walked in around 11:15. So there was another woman that said, "Oh, you came on time to eat." Says you came on time to eat. She was very, very hurt. So she stopped coming to the synagogue. She comes to the youth minyan, not to the other minyan, because the young people don't make fun. Well, let's say we had a Shabbaton one time, and there was a girl that needed to walk home. So one of the guys walked her home. But then the night before, she was seen with another boy. Honestly, a bunch of stories were said. Oh, she dates every night somebody else. It was just an innocent walking. They were walking at home because it was late at night, Friday night. She was afraid to walk home to the end of Newcastle. So these words actually hurt. Even if I say something that doesn't hurt you right away, you're going to hear it later on and you're going to get hurt. The Torah has prohibited it. And again, words are very, very strong. So the Torah is teaching us that not only, financially hurting somebody is a sin, but if you actually emotionally with words hurt somebody, it's also a sin. Not only that, is actually worse than hurting somebody financially. Clear, people? So I think we're going to stop here. Please, guys, make sure you go to Tel Aviv